There's a lot of different camera companies out there, but how do we know who's actually winning and losing? Who's the most popular and who's the least popular? I've talked a little bit about Canon and Sony and Panasonic, and from my perspective, why Canon keeps failing, Sony keeps winning, and Panasonic keeps losing. But how do we actually know? I don't have sales figures for any of these companies. All I have is kind of my own personal perspective on it, as well as what you see out in the wild, kind of what people are shooting with. And from my perspective, typically you see a lot of Canon, you see a lot of Sony, you see some Nikon out there for sure, more for photography. And then every once in a while you see a GH5 or some kind of Lumix camera, typically doing more of the video type stuff. Every once in a while I see a Blackmagic, but really it seems to be that most people are buying Canon and Sony. And that's why I think it's kind of a shame, because Panasonic keeps making great cameras, but people don't buy them. And I have theories as to why that is that I've talked about in the past: sensor size, branding with the Lumix brand, etc. But I thought it'd be fun to go through and look and see if there's a way we can kind of evaluate, beyond my personal perspective, how popular these companies actually are. If you look at Canon's Instagram, for example, they've got 3.1 million followers. That's pretty impressive. And this isn't, Canon printers. These are, images, nice photographs. That's what they're posting over on Instagram. Go figure, they're putting pictures on their Instagram. There are other Canon accounts that you can find on Instagram that you can look at for Canada and the UK and whatnot. However, this isn't super scientific. We're just going through. So 3.1 million followers, that's impressive for Canon. Let's go look at Nikon and see what they have. Nikon USA, not even 1 million. That feels about right for me in terms of like brand awareness and popularity. But let's check out Sony. And Sony, granted, is another big company, but let's go to Sony Alpha, because that won't be like Blu-ray players and TVs. So 1.9 million followers. So not Canon's 3.1, but more than Nikon, almost 2 million. That's significant. Let's go see if we go look at Sony, the kind of main brand, PlayStation and whatnot, 8.5 million. So clearly we've got cameras here, we've got headphones, we've got, a speaker? We got all sorts of stuff. Let's look at Panasonic. 33,000 followers. Interesting. Well, maybe this account is not really posting much of anything. Okay, well, Lumix. That's probably what it is. Let's go to Lumix, the official Instagram for Lumix. 165,000. Much, much less. So just at face value, I think this kind of proves, and granted, it's not, like I said, not a scientific test, but just in terms of popularity around these brands, Lumix has a long way to go to catch up to Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, to Canon. Let's go look at Olympus. Okay, another kind of a camera brand. Micro Four Thirds. 48,000. Interesting. Not as popular. Let's go look at Fujifilm. Oh my goodness, they have an underscore. All right, 200,000. All right. That's respectable. Good job, Fuji. Let's see, they got some other ones too. They got Fujifilm X-US, 189,000. Not up in the millions as the other brands were. Let's look at Red. Let's branch out of photography and look at some cinema lines. Oh, not even 500,000. But that makes sense. Red makes really high-end, expensive cameras. So we could keep playing around with this all day. You can even test hashtags, right? So if you search Sony Alpha, the hashtag, which is, we got 14 million posts here, almost 15 million for Sony Alpha. That's a very specific hashtag that means one thing, and there's a lot of traction around it. What if we just do hashtag Lumix? 3 million posts. So I think hopefully this helps paint the picture. I can only speak from my personal perspective, but the vibe that I get seems to be what's represented online. We could also branch out from Instagram. Maybe Instagram is just a different kind of audience. You could look at Twitter, and let's do it. So Canon on Twitter, 223,000 followers, so not nearly as good as they are on Instagram. But let's go look at Sony, and let's see what we can find here. Sony, 40,000. Okay, not anywhere near what Canon was doing. But let's see what we get for Lumix. Lumix cameras, 16,000. So on Twitter, we still have some discrepancies. Not as significant, but they're there. Another way we could test is going over to Amazon. Of course, Amazon. Let's see the reviews. How many reviews do these cameras get? That can also help kind of paint the picture. So we can look at the 5D Mark IV, very popular Canon camera, and it has 377 ratings on Amazon. How about the Sony a7S II? That was a very popular camera. And we can go over here to the 7S II, and that's 79 ratings on Amazon. Interesting, interesting. How about the very popular GH5? GH5 camera was my choice at the time between the A7S II, 191 ratings, so more than the A7S II. Again, we're not comparing apples to apples. This is just arbitrary, the people who left a review, but I think it does speak to kind of the impressions around these cameras, specifically if we look at the Lumix S1H. Lumix S1H has 13 reviews. 13 on Amazon. That's not a lot. Not a lot at all. Maybe we should pop over to B&H to kind of get a sense, because that's the more professional marketplace. We could also look at Adorama, I suppose, but let's go to B&H. Again, with the 5D Mark IV, we've got 1,104 reviews. Let's do the Sony a7S II. And this is a game you can play all you want. Go to whatever website you want, search around, have fun. The a7S III, of course, is the new one, but let's go to the a7S II. This has 287 reviews. And sometimes you have to be a little careful because sometimes different SKUs, different models on the site will have different review counts. Like you can see here, the Sony a7S II has 287 reviews, but then the a7S II body only, 287. Where's the one? A7S II with the 2470, 270. So these review counts are different. I don't know if that's in the back end of B&H where they're aggregating them, but like the people who didn't get the lens, I don't know how they do their reviews. But in any case, I think it's still interesting to look at. We've also got the Lumix GH5, which we'll take a look at here, and 191 reviews, which is interesting that that's kind of what we had on Amazon, if I recall, that same number, 191. Odd, but interesting. And you can see these two different ones, GH5, GH5. Of course, there was the GH5S. Can't forget that one. So slight variation. But even then, that drops you down to 60 reviews. So we went from 191 down to 60, which feels about right for how popular that camera was after the fact. I think there were a lot of people who got the GH5 and then didn't, feel the need to upgrade to the 5S. You can do the same thing on Amazon. If we look at the GH5 and we say, okay, the GH5 has 191. It was 191. That's interesting. And then we look at the GH5S. Now we're looking at 30 reviews here. See, this one has 1, but it's just because it's a different kit. So again, not scientific. I know this is not like, oh, it's proof, it's evidence, case closed. No, it's just kind of the vibe around these brands and what people are buying. And I don't think it should come as any surprise that not a lot of people bought the S1 comparatively to, how many people are going to buy the A7S III or who bought maybe the other good one to look at. I know what I want to look at. So the S1, 24 reviews on Amazon. Not a whole lot. Let's just look at the A7 III. Very popular camera, A7 III. 527 reviews. So when we're looking at this and we're kind of trying to evaluate, okay, Sony's very, very popular compared to some of this other stuff. Now let's look at Canon and just the R, because that would have been kind of a, similar thing. Canon going mirrorless. What do we got there? 200 reviews. And then there's the RP, which is also, what's that, 100 reviews here. 18. Again, Amazon's not the greatest at some of this stuff, so you can always compare over on B&H as well. 464 for the Canon R464. And then the R5 has some reviews. 5 stars on the R5, apparently, says everyone on B&H who's... Do they have it? Let's see. Released in limited quantity. Well, 29 people love the R5. That's interesting. All right, so we have 464 reviews on the EOS R. Let's look at the A7 III. Not the S, because I know the S is 766, which again feels about right in terms of popularity for these things, just based on who's using them on Instagram, on YouTube. I mean, your favorite creators, whoever you follow, like they're shooting with something, so I usually talk about it. The other thing you can do is we can go over to, let's go to Google and let's just look up Canon 5D Mark IV. Great thing about Google has this nice little reviews metric here, which I believe they're aggregating from somewhere, but you get this very, very high number on the 5D Mark IV, 3,119 reviews. Let's do the same thing for the Lumix GH5, 1,386. Interesting. Let's do the Sony A7 III, 2,573. And then finally, Lumix S1, just to kind of get a sense. And that one didn't even pop up with a sidebar. There, the S1H, 53 reviews. So you can kind of get a sense. Someone asked me in a previous video, they left a comment saying, well, like, that's just your opinion. Like, you don't know that these cameras are doing great. They're selling like hotcakes. Panasonic's making a fortune on all these cameras. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know their sales figures, but it seems like they have a lot of ground to catch up in the marketplace, just in terms of the volume around these products, the literal volume of like people talking about it and making noise and saying, what's your favorite camera, or what do you shoot with, or what should I get? Because that's typically what people ask, right? That's the vast majority of consumers. It's not me. I'm a very small part of the market. Most people who are buying cameras are just people who want to take pictures for like their family, their friends, or whatever, and they're, hey, which is the best one? What should I get? And now with Instagram, you have a lot of people who want that higher end look and feel because they want their page to look really nice. They don't want to just be like, shots on their iPhone. They want something that's professional looking. Typically means shallow depth of field, and then they'll throw, some basic color on there with like a preset or something. But there's other people who, go all out and they do all the mobile Lightroom type stuff. In any case, Sony has won a lot of attention and favor over the past 10 years or so that they've been doing mirrorless. I mean, they went mirrorless full frame well ahead of everybody else. Panasonic is just now catching up. Canon is just now catching up. I should have talked about Nikon, but who talks about Nikon? I don't know. I'm sure there's people who love Nikon. Don't get me wrong. No offense if you like Nikon. But it's just interesting to see. I think it's fair to evaluate that these brands are at different positions, and rightfully so. Who do they cater to? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to achieve? And then maybe talking about it in a why it is the case that Sony has done such a great job, Canon has done a decent job, and Panasonic has done less than stellar with awareness. And this isn't me hating on Panasonic. I love the Lumix cameras. You're watching a GH5 right now. It's a great camera. I had the GH4 before it. I can go all the way back to the GH1. Maybe I'll pull it out here one day for a video or something. But yeah, I've been a fan of the Lumix cameras for a long time. But the question becomes, why isn't it more mainstream? Why don't more people use these cameras? And I think it comes down to some underlying core factors. The Lumix cameras have great features. When you look at, the first to do, I don't say the first, but like one of the first mainstream cameras to do 4K in an affordable compact camera, the GH4. And then the GH5 to do 4K 60. And having things on the GH5 like internal stabilization with video, having the Vlog upgrade, being able to do things just like setting shutter angle and all the video features. You can do anamorphic. They opened up 6K. Like, they've added so many features that are video centric to the GH line. And then they've done the other things like, face detection, autofocus, and that kind of mirrorless style technology. And their feature set has been great. As a video person, I love the Lumix GH cameras. And having recently tested the S1H, love that camera as well. Beautiful, wonderful. But what I think Sony has gotten right, and even Canon has kind of missed for a long time, is just the core underlying features. When you look at Sony Alpha 7, 7S, 7R, whatever 7 it is, or that 9 is also out there, right? I don't think there's an Alpha 5. I'm not aware of all the Sony cameras. I apologize. But at least with the 7 series, those cameras, core underlying features, full frame, mirrorless. That alone has separated Sony so far ahead of everybody else, regardless of the codec being 8-bit, or it's only 420, or they don't do high frame rate. All the stuff they're fixing now, or the flip screen, or the small batteries, or all the kind of specs, the details, the feature set, the core underlying technology is full frame mirrorless. And that has gotten them so far ahead of everybody else, because Canon wasn't doing it for the longest time. Panasonic was doing mirrorless, but they drug their feet on going full frame. So when people ask what's the best camera to use, and people say, oh, you need full frame, which is arguable. There's people who don't need full frame. They like the small compact size. Should more people, regular people be shooting Micro Four Third? Probably. Do they need the big old expensive $2,000 lens, or would they be fine with the $500 lens? That's not how people think, though. They go with the kind of core underlying set, and then everything on top is a pro or con to help them weigh their decision. And with the Lumix cameras, for the longest time, it was like, they're great, they're fantastic for video. And anyone who didn't want them, it was always because, well, it's not full frame though. People, oh, but a speed booster. Yeah, but it's not full frame. I'm going to go Sony because it's full frame. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't care what your camera does. It could do anamorphic 12K, and I'm still going with the full frame camera because I like full frame. And I'm going with Sony because it's mirrorless, and Canon still has, the mirror box in their DSLR. So like Canon's, I'm writing them off too. I'm going to go Sony. It's the kind of core underlying stuff. So I'm glad that the market has moved to a point where everybody has embraced full frame mirrorless for the most part. The big players anyway, the people who are making great cameras. And we see that now with the A7S III, the Canon R5, the R6, the S1H, and the S1 series from Panasonic. And Nikon has cameras out there too, but again, who talks about Nikon? At least I don't. So I think when you look at all this stuff, I may only have my single perspective on what resonates with me, what I think is popular, how I read it. But I think there's also some signals out there that speak pretty highly to what the general vibe is to out there with other people. Not scientific, I know, but I think it's just interesting to look at and compare. Well, where do all these things line up? And then you can draw your own conclusions from there.